Just gonna check my email while I'm waiting. Let's see what's going on here. Yes. Oh, the Canucks. Yeah, they're playing tonight. That's gonna be great. I mean, I'm hopeful they're gonna win, but it's hard to say. They've been really up and down so far this year, and I mean, who knows, right? I hope for a great outcome, but you know, we've got some really great young talents, but the inconsistency is what's killing us. And you know, they're blaming the coach for that, but we'll see what happens.
Awesome.
Hey. So, David, welcome to Student Focus. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I'm not ready to play drums for you, I'm afraid, but...
I'm so confused. This is a role reversal. I don't know what to do.
Exactly. Kyle Radomsky, first of all, thank you for giving up your time for this. This is pretty cool to have you, like you say, on the other end of some questions for a change.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's... Yeah, I mean, I do have a habit of talking a lot, but maybe there's something I haven't said yet. Maybe you'll get it. So let's find out.
When did you join Drumeo?
That's a good question. The true answer is I'm one of the original coaches, or actually coaches, I shouldn't say coaches. I'm one of the original instructors they hired back in 2012. So
okay.
I've known Jared, I've known Jared as probably, boy, it's gotta be 15 years at least. I used to sell him gear. And I remember Jared when he had the long hair. He's like he used to wear the puka shell necklace and he had the longer hair. It was really pretty. So I was one of those original instructors. We were the guys that we'd go live and we just shot in that old original studio. We go live basically daily and just shoot stuff. And I think it's about the first 600 lessons or so were done in that way. And then things started evolving past that into what they became. I stayed on as a contract instructor until 2019. I started in May 2019 full time. Basically, I came out to the studio in March 2019, shot a bunch of stuff. Dave, as he would do, he'd walk down and say, "Hey, buddy, so can I take you for lunch?" And I'm like, "Sure, you can take me for lunch." And so he takes me for lunch and he basically offers me a job on the spot. And I was blown away. And I had a career. I was super happy with it. I've been working in the industry in retail sales for almost 23 years. And I was a store manager. And I had actually thought about asking Drumeo if there was some sort of position that would fit. But I was like, I have no idea. And they came to me. So I was super honored and totally blown away, and I decided to completely alter the course of my and my family's lives and change everything I was doing all at once. So
that's pretty cool. So talk to me a little bit about what that meant to you at that time. You mentioned you were managing like a music store.
Sure.
You managed a music store for like 10 years, didn't you?
That's right.
And
so
you've been, yeah. So what did it mean to kind of switch from doing that to full-time Drumeo?
So working in that industry, I've been a player my whole life. I played full-time for a long time, and even as I was managing a music store, I was lucky enough to still get to play an awful lot. So I gigged all the time. I was still doing about 150 shows a year, and sort of kept a very hectic schedule, but I thrive on being overly stimulated. So I like that pressure, and I like that go kind of thing. So it was wonderful. And I love my staff. I love working for that company. They're a fantastic company. I've got nothing ever bad to say about them. And things are going great. But I was sort of like, man, you know, I'm in my mid-40s. This is awesome. I know exactly what this path looks like. If I want to retire here 20 years from now, I'm going to probably make exactly this amount of money, and I could pick my date of retirement. And some people love that. It's like, what a great thing. And I'm like, great, I guess. I don't like sitting still too much. So it's sort of like, I didn't want to move up in the company to like a district manager. Their head office is in Toronto. I didn't want to move there. So I was like, this is probably the gig I would keep. And that's fine. A lot of guys, that's great. But I'd been working with Drumeo over the years, and I was like, man, like every drummer, it's like, that's got to be the coolest place in the world to work. Like, how could it not be? And I was like, I wonder if there's any sort of thing there that would fit. I don't know. And I'll be honest, I thought about it like casually, maybe over 2 years, 3 years, thinking, I'll float a question at some point to Dave or Jared, just be like, what would you guys think of this? And then when Dave came to me and we talked about it, the funny thing was, he's like, we were going to ask you 3 years ago, but we didn't think it was a good time and a good fit, and it just all worked out as it should, clearly. But I make decisions pretty quickly. I'm a pretty decisive person, and so we had that conversation. I called my wife. She said, "You're insane to even consider this." And I said, "Yeah, that's true." Jared was on vacation when they offered it to me, so I had 2 weeks of like torture, where I was like, "What am I going to do?" And I requested a meeting with Jared and Dave. I said, "Is it cool if we both sit down? Because this is a big change." And so they said, "Sure." So we had a meeting. I decided the next day after that meeting, told my boss. He thought it was an April Fool's joke because it was April 3rd. He couldn't believe I quit my job. He's like, there was no suggestion I would ever leave. So he's like, "You're joking." I'm like, "No." So I went from April 3rd to May 1st, pardon me. I started here May 1st, 2019 full time. So I worked straight up to then, literally had the weekend off and came to work here. And I went from being the guy that hired and fired, managed a $5+ million store. I had 17 employees, 35 instructors, to walking in here being one of the oldest people on staff who knew nothing about how modern web-based business is run. I was an instructor. I didn't know anything about the systems and all that, and it took me a good solid year to change that. And I just had a conversation with Dave about this yesterday. Like, it was a huge change in my life and my day-to-day. I love the challenge, but it's been very humbling, very humbling.
In what way has it humbled you then? What have you found to be kind of the biggest challenges of starting there full time and learning all this kind of new stuff? Clearly, you, like you said, you had that security of that previous role.
Oh, yeah.
You could have stuck it out for another 20 years. You're a drummer, you're a creative guy, you wanted
That's
a new
right.
challenge. So how did you go through that process of relearning all this stuff at your junior age?
Yeah, so, Dave's been so gracious and patient. I mean, it was it's different than how you would hire most employees because, I don't want to, I'm not boasting here, but it was sort of like, hey, we made this position for you. We're offering it to you. It wasn't a job I had applied for. So to me, that was a lot of pressure. I was really honored for that. And I'm like, boy, I sure hope I can deliver what they think I can do, because I don't know, right? And I'll tell you, the first 6 months was just a whole culture change. Aside from my role, right? I was in charge of culture before at my place. I was the gauge that everybody worked off of, right? That's the manager's job. You're a leader. So here I had to be more of a puzzle piece, and that was a huge adjustment. But the biggest differences are for sure the speed this place works at, right? And the growth that we've seen already. Like, in less than a year from when I started, we did the Drumeo Festival, that lovely t-shirt you're wearing right now. That was an insane, that's the largest project we did ever. Yeah, but just like learning the processes of how to work with different for me, working in an office. I'm a terrible typist. So I had to learn to get faster at that, and I still have to work at that. Learning how to integrate better with all the teams we have, because it's not just a bunch of dudes with drum sets and cameras running around all willy-nilly all day long, right? We've got a production. I know. It's not. But we've got an awesome production crew, which we've got marketing, and we've got finance, and it's a business, right? It's a proper business, and the way the company works was so different and new to me. I really had to make that adjustment, and of course, being a community manager instead of looking after the day-to-day needs of 17 or 35 people or 50 people, I'm helping 25,000 people now. And how does that scale? And what does that look like? And how many emails do I get a day? And how can I help you? And then how about you? And how about you? So, it's just been, I'm completely stimulated in a totally different way. But I think the biggest difference is not that I wasn't challenged and fulfilled in my previous gig. This one really challenges me and really pushes me to work really hard to get better at all the things I suck at more than that job did. So,
let's go back a little bit to before
Sure.
you were managing the stores and doing all that stuff. You've been drumming for a long time. You started at 13
Yep,
and you were playing piano at 5, I believe.
that's right.
What led you into music originally?
I come from a pretty musical family. My grandfather, Metro Radomsky, was a well-known Ukrainian fiddler. He lived in Alberta, which is in the prairies here in Canada, which has a huge Ukrainian and Eastern European population. And, you know, if you had a wedding, a traditional wedding, you'd have to hire a traditional Ukrainian band for that. And my grandfather was the guy to get. So he toured around all over the province, played weddings, and those are like those crazy, you know, 6-8 hour gigs where it's just nonstop, right? The rye is pouring and the vodka's pouring and let's go. And my dad played in his band. My dad's a saxophone player, so he grew up playing in that band. So there's that lineage. And then I'm the youngest of 3 by far. So I joked my parents raised 3 only children because my brother is 8 years older than me and my sister is 17 years older than me.
Okay,
So-
wow.
Yeah, so they're both quite musical. My dad, I'm probably the closest in career path to my dad in that he worked most of his life as a salesman, either in retail or as a business manager or a wholesale manager, and then played as well. And then my brother has been a career musician basically his whole life. He's a drum educator. I talk about him often on Drumeo because the funny story is that Aaron Edgar and myself were both taught by my brother.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so when you do see the similarities and maybe some of the pedagogy that we both follow, it's because we literally had the exact same start in drums. And my sister is a piano instructor. She's also an RCM adjudicator at times. And so there was music in my house all the time. My sister was in university when I was 4 and 5, so she used to take me to school with her. So I would go and literally, I was a tiny kid. I was born like 2.5 months premature, so I was really small for a long time. So she'd pick me up at 5, and she'd put me on the piano, and I'd play with my feet. This was a great fun thing to do. So I would do that, and then I started taking piano lessons with her, of course. And the rule in my family was I had to get my grade 6 RCM, which is the Royal Conservatory of Music, piano grade, and my grade 2 RCM theory before I was allowed to play the drums in my family, because my mother and my father and my brother and sister saw the benefit of having that background so that I could hit the ground running if I chose to play the drums, because I really wanted to. You know, again, idolizing my brother. I would actually sneak into the basement. He had this big Tama Imperial Star kit. I still think of it daily. And I would risk the beating when he wasn't home. I would risk the beating. You've ever seen the movie Step Brothers?
No.
Okay, well, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, and Will Ferrell's got a drum kit. No, John C. Reilly has a drum kit, and Will Ferrell plays it one day, and he's not supposed to touch it. There's a chip on the stick, and he comes up and goes, "Did you play my drums?" Well, I'll tell you, my brother was exactly the same. He would look at his drumsticks, and he'd come downstairs, he's like, "Did you play my drums?" My brother and I didn't get along great. He's 8 years older. He's the middle child. I'm the baby, right? He sat me down. I started playing drums at 13. He taught me. My sister was a great instructor. My brother's a great instructor. Very different styles. My sister had been teaching full-time for a long time. My brother also had, but he took a little more of the license of I'm your brother, so I'm going to be a little bit harder on you. He sat me down one day and he said, "You know what? You should quit playing the drums." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you're never going to amount to anything on this instrument. Like, you don't have the drive, the passion, the conviction. Forget it, man. Like, this is a waste of your time. Like, you should give up." Do I think he did that now? Do I think that he did that to light a fire under my butt? Probably. Did he know he was doing that at the time? I'm not sure. But what's the strongest force in the universe? Sibling rivalry, right? It's like, oh, I can't do this? Wow, let me show you. So yeah, from that day onward, and I was also really, really lucky. We had a good band program in the school I was at in grade 7, and that's where I started playing the drums. I had to play another instrument as well because I could read music. So the teacher's like, "Well, you play the drums in the concerts, but you got to play baritone or euphonium." So I played that. And then when we were moving out to BC, my dad got transferred. We actually scouted good schools for music, and my parents were really awesome about that. So I got to go to a high school that had an incredible band program. I'll give you a fascinating statistic. So my grade 12 senior big band, if you will, a big band usually has, 17 players in it? Half of that band in my grade 12 year are now professional musicians.
Wow.
And this is a public school. This is not a fine arts school. It's because of the band director, Dave Prosnick. He was my mentor through high school. He pushed me super hard, and he knew what buttons to press, and he knew how to get the best out of everybody. And then from there on, I was super lucky. I got to play all the time, all the time. I was playing in every kind of environment you could imagine in high school. I was playing in jazz combos, and I was gigging on the weekends with those jazz groups. And then I had scholarships to 3 or 4 different schools I could look at, which is, what a luxury, right? So, of course, I chose the biggest one possible, even though I could have had a free, full 4-year, smorgasbord of education and knowledge at the Lionel Hampton School of Music. It sounds terrible to pass that up, but it's in Idaho, so let's consider that. But, of course, I chose Berkeley because of the prestige. And I don't regret that choice for a second, but that's where I went after high school. I did a year at Berkeley, and I was gonna go back. I took 6 months. It's really expensive. And now it's way more expensive because the problem is you can be a professional drummer. If you get a degree at Berkeley, it's gonna cost you $100,000 US, maybe more. It's like $200,000 now. That's like getting a doctorate anywhere else. It's really hard to pay back those loans $100 a night at a gig. It's just, I can't take a degree with me and be like, hey guys, I've got my diploma. I think you owe me more money. It doesn't work that way, right? So I took 6 months off to try and go back, and I had scholarships and stuff to help defray it, but it was still crazy. I came home, started looking for things to do. 2 weeks later, got a really good gig. Went on the road at 18 and never went back.
And that was with Farmer's Daughter?
That's right.
Okay, so how did that come about? Because you've kind of gone through the early years picking up music when you were young, being influenced by your family.
Yep.
You've picked up the drums in defiance of your brother telling you that you're never going to be any good. Yep. And motivating you more than ever to play the drums.
Totally.
You go through the kind of college system, the scholarships, you're playing like in all these different scenarios. How then do you go from that to joining a band that were signed with Universal Music at the time, weren't they? And
yeah, so basically what happened was I'm at home, and I was flipping through the WAN ads, basically, and my phone rings. And it was a good friend of mine, Brendan McLean. He called me, and he's like, hey, this band's auditioning for drummers. And I'm like, cool. So he wanted some advice. I actually taught him, and was at the time kind of teaching him. He's a few years younger than me, but we were buddies and all that. Drummers, we hang out, right? We're not super competitive with each other often, right? We want to help each other. What a weird thing. So we're talking, and he's like, oh, I'm going to audition. I'm like, sweet. And then I'm like, maybe I should audition. I don't know, right? So I was like, I'm reading what the ad says. I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of on the up and up. I'll give it a shot. So I go to the audition, and I'm 10 years younger than everybody in the room, at least, maybe 30, depending, and I get through the audition, and it went pretty well. And then I had to do a second audition, and I'll tell you, speaking of drummers being really supportive. So I'm 18, I audition, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I played more jazz than anything at this point, but I was figuring out how to be versatile. That was my goal. I wanted to be very versatile. That was my whole goal. So I didn't know this at the time. So they brought me in for this other audition. I think it was actually a gig we did at a pub. And they didn't tell me, but they brought another pro drummer out to watch. And they wanted his opinion. They wanted him to vet me. And he watched, and he's like, yeah, kid can play. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, you could probably go with that. I think that'll work for you. And his name is Sean Susie. Sean, if you ever see this, Thank you. Sean is a fantastic drummer and a great carpenter. He built my fence a couple years ago, and he did an amazing job. But so we're still friends. But I was blown away by that when I found that out. But you know, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. They weren't signed to Universal at that point. They were just about to get signed. I was with them literally during the writing of the first record and the early touring of that first record. And when it came out, and then I left. Oh man, I was fired about a year later.
Why was that?
Because I was probably too green for the gig I had. I mean, I knew when I got that gig how lucky I was. I knew that I had jumped the queue. I should be playing bars for 5 years and paying my dues. And I'm like, I'm playing these big stages, opening for these huge country acts going, all right, you know. But I really wasn't ready. I look back now and I go, oh God, I can't believe I had that gig. And it was really nice. The manager, who was a sweet man, took me for Subway. We went to Subway, and we were having sandwiches, and he's like, you know, Kyle, and he just fired me. I did learn a very large lesson from my brother, and he said, you know, in any time in life when there's problems or you get, you know, something like that happens, be a big man about it. He said, just take it on the chin and be gracious or whatever, and I did that, and I still have a great relationship with them today. And the other part of the business is one of the singers had a very dear friend who was a pro drummer who had become available. So she wanted him to have the gig. So that's the way she rolls. I mean, that's the truth, right?
But what was that experience like for that year or so that you were doing that? Did you feel under an immense amount of pressure? Did you get into it and kind of, obviously you learned a lot in that short space of time, but how did you feel when you were in it?
I was lucky that I was aware that I was in a position that could have been 12, 15 other guys. That I knew that. I was used to that, though. I kind of went through that in college a little bit, too. When they recorded the record, I remember thinking at the time, oh, I should be the one playing on the record. I didn't know any better. I thought that's how they did things. And they're like, no. We're using this guy, the seasoned pro. And I was like, cool. Okay, I was a little bit upset, I guess, but I didn't tell them that. But I got to go watch them record the record. And I got to go watch the pros do it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I can't do that. Not yet. And then, so I kind of, you know, started taking those things. And there was one singer in that group, Angela Kellman. Angela's actually been on Drumeo. She taught a lesson on singing while playing, because she's a fantastic singer. And she was the most seasoned of the three girls in Farmer's Daughter. And she'd played with everybody in town. And we actually were both from the same Prairie province originally. I'm from Winnipeg. She's from Brandon, Manitoba. So we had a kinship there. And she's the one that probably got me fired, but that's okay. But she was the hardest on me because she knew what she wanted from a drummer. And I played to what she wanted and did my best. And I remember when I would get it right and she'd tell me, and I guess, you know, looking back, it was 1 in 5 shows probably. So it was the right choice for everybody for sure. And I just sort of, I absorbed as much as I could, tried to grab on it as tight as I could. But yeah, when I got fired, I wasn't surprised. I was upset for sure, but I wasn't having delusions for sure. So I think that's what prepared me to land on my feet and move forward from that. So yeah.
And how did you feel finishing that? What was the feeling like? What did you feel like you wanted to do next? What was the immediate desire in terms of your kind of drumming future? Did you kind of take the attitude of, oh, I'm kind of done with that now, or the kind of whole kind of touring and recording, or did you want to get more of it? What did you want to get after that finished?
Oh, my initial reaction was, what's next?
Okay.
And I had another gig pretty shortly after that, actually.
What kind of time frame are we looking at between that finishing and you getting into kind of the music store business?
I finished the gig with Farmer's Daughter. That would have been, I'm going to say, spring '94. I'm looking for work in the summertime, and I was working part-time doing some stuff and teaching, and I see an ad in the paper for this gig, and it read great. It was like, touring variety act. And I'm like, variety act? That sounds fun. I want that. All kinds of music. That sounds like a good time. Okay. So I call, and what I should tell you is, at this exact time, or just prior to this, my brother had been touring with a burlesque act, doing all over Canada. It was a fantastic show. He left that gig to do something else, and this is about 8 months after that. So I call the ad, and the guy answers the phone, and I kind of recognize his voice because I'd met him, and I didn't realize who I was talking to. And I gave him my name, and he goes, "Wait, Kyle Radomsky?" And I go, "Yeah? Who's this?" He goes, "It's Dave Gannett." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" It was the show my brother had been touring with. The guy that replaced my brother was not long for the gig, and they were trying to get someone else in. I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." So I auditioned, got the gig, and that was amazing. It was playing 6 nights a week, 140 different songs, because every show was themed differently. So it's a burlesque act, and we would do 5 shows a day, sometimes 6. And every set had different music based on the material. It was like doing a theater show. It really was. We were playing in, how shall I phrase this? Houses of ill repute. We were playing in strip clubs, right? So we would be, the band is shoved in a corner, but we're playing like there was Steely Dan in the set and like all this like adventurous music and all this crazy stuff. But when we weren't playing songs, we had to play underscore while she was telling a joke, or I'd have to catch a shot or something dancers were doing. So it was literally like playing a theater show in very small condensed pieces every week. And I had to learn 140 songs in 2 weeks. And at this point, I'd learned enough country to get myself arrested, and that was about it. So I had to learn all of this material, and it's classic rock stuff I should have known, but I didn't grow up playing rock. So that was a great testing ground for me. And so I did that, and did that for about however long that tour was. Came back, got a gig working overseas in a dance band. So I went to Dubai for 5.5 months. That was an amazing experience. That band was all playing 90s house music to click. That was a fantastic learning experience for me. Really helped me with my time. Then that band came home. We took a few months off, went back to Taiwan, did 3 months there. That band imploded in spectacular fashion. And then I decided to put together my own band. I used a couple of the players from that band. We put together our own group. And then in '97, we worked in the Philippines, and we did 6 months in Indonesia, 3 months in Jakarta, 3 months in Surabaya. And then I came home, got married, had to get a real job, and then got the gig at the music store. I literally started the job at the music store 2 days after my wedding. True story. I canceled our honeymoon because I'd never really had a real job in my life, and I didn't know I could tell them that I had a honeymoon to go to. I was like, well, they want me to start this day. I said, okay, let's start. So,
wow.
Yeah, and then so I did that. I went to work full-time at the music store, and I wasn't playing much at that point. About 5 years into that, I was really depressed. My wife went through a real bad health scare. She had brain cancer. Don't worry, she's fine. But we both went through a real sort of, you have those moments where you take stock, and I was like, hold on a second here. I came to a conclusion that if I was going to try to get myself back in a happy place, I had to figure out how to do music and this job together. And I did that. And I'm not a big believer in, all the cosmic possibilities. I think you just have to be ready for the opportunity if it comes in front of you. So I made that decision in 2003. That same year, I met Bobby Bruce, who's also known as Nearly Neil, who's one of the world's best Neil Diamond tribute artists. And I've been in that band since then. I've toured the world with him. Him and his wife are two of the most amazing people I've ever worked with, the best bosses for gigs I've ever had, and we're very close friends, and so that's how that all went and all the other gigs between that, but that's sort of that path.
That's a whirlwind. I'm getting that sense of you're super quick at jumping into the next thing, and credit to you for that. So tell me also that you've had your honeymoon.
I've made it up to her. So a funny story about how much I love my wife and how awesome she is. So I start dating her about 10 days before I got the gig with the burlesque act. So I'm now 19, she's 17, and I now have to tell her and her very large, very hairy, very biker dad that I'm going on the road with 5 strippers for the next 3 months. And her dad, to his credit, is like, dump that dude now. And she didn't. And, we had a long distance relationship, as you can imagine. I met her then. All that overseas touring, we were apart. I brought it. She did come to Dubai, but we were apart for the better part of half of our early relationship. So she knew what she was getting into with what the lifestyle looked like. So she's been awesome about that and always very supportive. People always talk about, I want to buy a new drum set, but the wife will never allow it or whatever. And for me, it's always been like, listen, it's stuff you need to use. Don't tell me. I don't really care. Now, that being said, she has an awesome craft room, so.
Okay, yeah, that's it. It's kind of, as long as each person has their thing that they get, they get their enjoyment out of, and it's either for work or for pleasure, and they do that thing to the best of their ability. You support each other in that, so that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's catch up to Drumeo. Mm-hmm. You started in May 2019, you said. Mm-hmm. You're managing thousands of people in the community. We've talked a little bit about how you got into that role and the challenges of that role, kind of walking into Drumeo, and all of a sudden you've got this online business, thousands of customers. What did you enjoy the most that you maybe didn't expect to get out of it in your first kind of 6-12 months?
I was so used to working with people one-on-one in person, so I knew what that was like. Trying to port that to communication through a computer or through a camera is a whole other world. And it's surprised, I guess, is true, that we do make that same level of impact on somebody without being physically with them. And that is mind-blowing to me. And I'd never take that lightly. And I'm always so pleased when I can, and I'm a people pleaser. It's what I do. And I want to be able to give anybody whatever help I can offer them, right? I love sharing information because that's what drummers do. And to be able to connect with them so closely without being with them. I was at NAMM and people coming up to me, two things happened. One was, hey, you're not Dave. But then it was, hey, K-Rad. And I was like, what? And I'm like, they're like, man, you changed my life. And I'm like, sorry? He's like, no, in a good way, right? And I'm like, it just blew my mind. And to be able to connect to people that way through the internet, and man, then COVID hit, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, hold on here. We got to really double down here, and we got to figure this out. And the more we sort of interact with everybody, I'm just blown away by the appreciation and genuine response we get from people, because I think you never really know. You want to do your best all the time, and it's like when you make a video, it's like you put it out there and hope it does well, but you really don't know. You can take all the analytics in the world, but you just don't know if it's going to hit. And it's the same when we're doing things. I'm helping a student, I'm typing something, I'm like, boy, I really hope this helps them. And of course, it's not always right, but I learn just as much too. And that's the other big one, is the amount of stuff I learn daily from my students and everybody that's out there, and it just blows my mind.
Give me an example then of something that you've learned from all of the people that you interact with.
As an instructor, I think we all at some point have an ideal that we want all of our students to follow this path to become great drummers. Because that's what we think, that's what we are. We're not great drummers, but we are, we're educators, so we have to educate and we have to put you on this path of greatness. That's what we do. It's rigid. It's this. And then you realize, no, that's not the path. That's one path. Not everybody wants to be a professional drummer. And that's fine. That's wonderful. I don't care why you want to play the drums, in the sense that if it makes you happy hitting something, let's make that even better for you, right? As a hobbyist, great. I mean, there's not a person in the world that can't appreciate the joy of playing a drum set. There's something about hitting something that is really fun. And that's been probably the biggest thing. And we talk about it all the time. Me and Brandon and Dave are always discussing this. And it's like, we've got all these great students, and we just have to keep finding the ways that are going to help them achieve whatever that goal is. And of course, we talk about it all the time, and everybody says those things, but it's like, no, really, like, if you want to just play in your basement and rock out, great. Let's make sure you have the tools to learn those songs you want to play. I don't care if you ever want a gig. I don't care if you can play a pot of fla-fla. Do you want to learn it? Let's do it. But is it putting you towards your goals any better or any faster? Let's focus on what you want to do. Now, that can be one of those things. That's where sometimes the other instructors out there in the world that are doing this are going, geez, those guys, you know, they're slackers and they're doing this and doing that. I think you need to pay attention to what people need, and that's the heart and soul of having that communication connection with the students is, man, whatever brought you here and whatever you want to do with that thing in front of you, let's explore it together and let's get you to do whatever it is you want to do with it. And I think that's been the biggest thing. There isn't one technique. There isn't one foot technique. There isn't, you know, when I came up, there was like 2 choices, and it was all about rudiments first, and if you're lucky today, maybe you'll learn to play a drum beat, you know? No, man, like that's cool, but let's focus on other things if that's what you want to do. It's okay to put you on the path that's best for you, you know? Because we want to keep you engaged. We want to keep you in love with that thing you're sitting in front of. And that doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean it's going to be fun every moment. It might challenge you, but there are ways of finding how we can make that work for you, and you're still going to learn stuff. So that's been the biggest thing for me.
And that path as well, that motivation for different people changes over time as well for those individual people. It's never
Absolutely.
the same thing. It starts off as being, wow, I wish I could play that song. And then it might morph into, wow, I wish I could join a band. Or it might morph into, I'd really love to be able to teach this stuff.
Yep.
Or, you know, I want to go and tour the world. Is that a possibility for me? You know, so there's all these different motivations at different stages of your life. And when you're getting that feedback from the whole Drumeo community, and you're sitting down with Dave and with Jared and with Brandon, and you're kind of figuring out what to work on next and what to put in front of people next, how many of those random ideas do you actually pursue? Because you must come up with some really random ideas, like the summer camp thing you've done, and you've done some crazy stuff. Was the purpose of doing that to reach a new market for Drumeo as a business, or was it to inspire a new group of people or to encourage people to look at things a different way? What was the driver behind all that crazy stuff?
Pretty much every idea gets tabled in one way or another. And you can imagine, because I get so many emails and talk to customers every single day, it's when stuff pops up that's prevalent. And you go, geez, you know, this is a thing, or this is a trend. So you start focusing down those paths, right? But also, how do we consume education now? Like, well, first of all, we're in a position where we're inventing how we do it. It's a new, you know, Jared was one of the first to do this way, so we have to make sure we keep innovating and coming up with better and new ways to do that. So that's part of it. What do the students need? What do they actually need, right? I don't care what student you have. If you and I are in a room together and we talk about playing the drums and you tell me what you want to work on, I guarantee you're going to play it and be like, that's great. Here's what you actually need to do, right? Because we are all like that. And fortunately, that transfers in the internet just as well, you know? So there's a lot of that. It's like, what do they really need? Or how can we bundle the medicine with some sugar so they get exactly what they need, feel like they've gotten what they want to get out of this, but we also got them to do what they need to do. So those are, it all gets tabled, it all gets planned. When it comes to the fun stuff, I mean, we're always doing fun stuff, right? As we grow, you know, we have to keep adjusting things. We brought out coaches this year, we brought out this, that, the method started, all that stuff, right? So you only have so many resources to pull from. So you got to make sure that you're keeping all the balls in motion and you're trying not to ignore anything. Of course, it's impossible because someone really loved that one thing we did and we want more of it and they're really upset we're not doing more of it. Okay, again, 25,000 people or so, you have to be secure in your convictions that you're doing the best you can to help as many people as possible, but still sticking to your guns and presenting the best things you can and getting that to people, right? So sometimes again, because we're new this is still a new thing. Maybe we invent something totally new that doesn't exist yet, that people go, whoa, that's even better. Thanks for doing that. Well, that doesn't happen if we don't spend the time to really sit down and have those meetings where we're like, hey, I wonder if we could do that. And everyone goes, well, we could. I mean, what would it take? Well, I don't know. Okay, look into it, you know? But yeah, we're always looking at new things we want to be like Netflix for drummers. We want to have, I don't care if you're watching lessons, you know, we're very educationally driven, but I mean, we shoot stuff that's educational and fun, and we're working on some more of that kind of stuff. And, you know, I want to be a one-stop shop for everybody as best we can. So that's what we keep trying to strive for. You'll see more fun stuff for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a good segue into what you were shooting at the end of February, which is the Electronic Drums documentary, right? I feel like having looked at all of the Drumeo content that's available, and Dave talked about this in our interview that we did a while ago as well, is that there's only so many times you can teach a paradiddle, you know? Sometimes you have to go back to it and kind of interpret it in a new way or deliver it to a fresh audience in a different kind of style. Yes. But you're still teaching the fundamentals, and there's only so many of those that you can teach.
Yep.
And all of the coaches that you've had, and all of the live lessons and the packs that you've done, you've covered so much drumming educational content that maybe the shift is towards like more documentaries, kind of the Tama documentary that you did in Japan. That was awesome. But more kind of documentary style stuff and fun stuff that isn't necessarily educational, that's kind of, education is still a part of the reason for doing it, but it's like the hidden 20%.
That's right.
But the 80% is, look at this cool documentary that we're making. So tell me about the Electronic Drums documentary. How did that come about, and what was that like to do? Can you give us a preview, a little taster?
I totally can. So funny story about that is I'm working away at my desk one day, and Brandon wanders over. Now, the thing with this is Brandon is, I think he's 23, almost 24, which just kills me, right?
Oh, man.
I just feel like I'm going to like fall over and die, right? And I'm like, he's so smart and so good at what he does. And I'm like, he's like, hey man, I got a couple of questions. We're doing this little project with Jared, electronic drums, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, we're doing these, got these kits, we're going to do this thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I answered a couple of questions because I'm the old guy that might know some of those kits. Oh, I've played that. Oh, I know that one. Oh, yeah, I remember that, you know. And he's like, okay. And then he goes away. And then he comes back with some more questions. And we start kind of, this dialogue starts shifting from him asking me questions to like, well, maybe now we're bouncing ideas. And it gets getting bigger and bigger. And then it's like, well, okay, it started as I don't even know. I think it started as like 2 or 3 drum sets. It was going to be like a 10-minute quick tip. And then I left it alone, and it wasn't on my plate, so I kind of left it with Brando, and then things started escalating, and I kept throwing him stuff, and he kept getting bigger and bigger, and then we started having meetings. I'm like, well, what are we doing here? And it's like, well, we're doing a full documentary now. Okay, cool. So it went from like 4 drum sets. Okay, hang on, I got to do the math here. I think it's 16 kits. And so what ended up happening was, we had this sort of middle meat of an idea. And I was like, well, that's great. But if we're going to do this, like, we start here. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, check that out. And then we go to today. And so it was like, and what ended up happening was it just kept snowballing. So we got to a point where we had this whole thing planned, really scripted out. And what we've been looking to do, just like you said, is we've been looking to pump up the production quality in what we shoot. We're doing all kinds of stuff around here to better the quality we're doing, and this project ended up by accident being the project that got that treatment, because it's very rare for a project of this magnitude. This is the second largest project we've done. It's like the festival, only doing a video. So it's sort of ballooned into this huge project, and there's nothing like it that we've ever done. And I'll tell you right now, we were just discussing this. There's content we shot and will be shooting, I'm still shooting part of it, that you'll never see. No one has done any of the stuff we got to do with these kits. And you're going to see stuff from 1968. You're going to see a kit that's not out yet.
Okay.
I'm signed to an NDA, but we have something that's not on the market yet that we shot for the documentary, which is really exciting. And we're doing all kinds of crazy little fun videos with it. We did a bunch of stuff that was just really neat. But yeah, because a lot of the old stuff, there's no footage of a lot of those things. It was the 80s or the 70s. So we got to play with that stuff. We got to shoot it in the studio we shot it at. You would have loved it. We did a full offset shoot. We had a full, basically a production studio to ourselves. We had 7 or 8 different sets, so it was a full narrative to cover the story, and there's all kinds of companion footage going to go with it.
Oh man.
We decided to release it episodically. We're hoping right now the projected date's June 1 to start, and then I don't know if it's going to be weekly or what, but there's going to be 6 or 7 episodes. You'll see me taking apart vintage electronic drum kits to show you how they work. And then we're shooting some fun playing pieces. There's a couple of hilariously silly, they're not silly, but they're gonna be, I'm doing a segment on the 70s very soon. Brandon's doing the 80s, and actually 2 kits for the 80s. And then we have a project for Jared that's gonna be this ridiculous, multi-massive electronic kit that is, just crazy.
What's so interesting about the one that you can't talk about?
It has some new tech that nothing else does.
Have you discussed the possibility of a documentary like that going to Netflix?
Yep. We were discussing that. We're actually looking into, they have specific requirements for how things are shot. So we may look at, our plan right now is to shoot something larger format every quarter. We blew that a little bit with this project because it ended up being way bigger than we expected. But it was worth it. We had so much fun doing it, and we can't wait. But the next one, and we already have one that's basically ready to go to shoot. We may or may not shoot it, though. We're still debating on that. There's these things go through quite a vetting process.
Sure.
Especially when the last one sort of snuck through. and let me tell you, we're all going to be lucky that it did, because I don't know that we would have shot it otherwise.
Okay,
so
exactly.
we're happy about that. But of course, now they're like, well, hang on a second. What is the next one? Oh, okay. So we are planning to do more of those. And yes, perhaps that. I mean, there's even talk. We're looking at a few other things too. Jared's discussing, maybe doing something that's a sitcom. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I have no idea if we're going to do that. But we're constantly looking at that. We're actually looking at changing a few other things for our strategies with YouTube and inside Drumeo. In fact, I just had a meeting on this yesterday, exactly discussing, because we've had to pivot, we don't have artists coming out. So what are we going to do to feed our community? So we've got a bunch of really cool stuff that we've developed for that we're going to do in-house as much as we can. Because you're right. You can only teach the paradiddle so many times. However, the way we learn keeps evolving, hence the internet. This didn't exist before that. So people's needs change too, right? And the way they consume things and the way they learn changes. There's only there's only so many ways people actually learn, but like the method, the content in the method is technically very similar to what's in drumming system, right? Mm-hmm. Technically, and they're both technically doing the same thing. But they're presented in very different ways, because what did we learn from the drumming system that we could apply to the method, right? Mm-hmm. And even the method, we've got big plans for the method still too.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about the development of the method and how that shifted, and what your plans are maybe beyond level 10. So
that was basically Brandon and Dave's project at the start, because Brandon had just finished writing the Drummer's Toolbox book. Brandon has a great mind for structure and pedagogy, and Dave is the ultimate vetter. He is a great challenger. He's awesome at blowing holes through concepts and ideas. So they spent weeks and months with this plan. It originally was going to be maybe a book series, and then we was like, no, we're going to do it this way. So then they built that, and we're going to fly all these artists out, and that's going to be amazing. And then I got brought in at the very end to sort of help kind of weed it out and finalize the plan. So we wrote that like a script. It is from 1 to 10. It was completely structured and written with the idea of, well, if we're going to do this, let's do it completely so we have it and ready to go, for better or worse, right? We think this is going to work, because there aren't how much drum pedagogy stuff is there? There's like 4 things. It's still a new instrument, right? So let's figure this out. So we go ahead and do that. And so what we did is the only way to make this work is when you, as you know, you write a movie, you have to shoot it out of sequence most of the time to make it as efficient as possible. So we'll bring out John Wooten. He's got to shoot all 10 levels of his content. So we have to make sure we're done. We can't change things on the fly at this point because this is a story we're telling. It's a drumming story, right? So that's what we did. And then COVID hit. We got about 3/4 of the way through shooting and then had to make huge changes. That's why it stopped, because we had all this stuff we were supposed to shoot and we couldn't shoot it. So what we did was we took 3 or 4 months off to wait. And then we just said, no, we got to figure this out. So we were lucky enough that we have such amazing instructors in Canada. So we brought out Sarah, Mark Kelso, Larnell, and we shot the remainder of it, and it's fantastic. And we got it out. We may still tweak a few things from that. So here's the thing. There's always been a goal with the method to have quizzes, because there are a lot of students that like that. They like that challenge of passing that test. And so we want to offer that. We've taken a lot of the feedback we've gotten. We're going to make some adjustments to the method to make it even better than it is now. And then we're going to add some testing. And that's going to be a few different things. We have a couple of things coming tech-wise that are going to revolutionize how that works as well. And the idea is if you never picked up sticks, started in level 1, and finished level 10 in however many years it takes you to finish, you should be able to play in pretty much any situation comfortably.
That's a huge ambition,
right?
Just for that one product, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We needed something. Here's the thing. Drumeo was built in a way where it was a lot of great ideas and content that was put together. We didn't build Drumeo in order. It wasn't like, let's start with the method and then we can do all these other things. No, we did all this amazing stuff and put it places. But then students come to the website and they go, wow, I don't know what to do with all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Hence the method. You want a step-by-step? You want to learn, you want Larnell Lewis to teach you Motown? Yeah, you do. So go right ahead. Right? So, but that's that, right? Oh, you want to go deeper into hand technique? Okay, here, go check out Bruce's stuff that's outside that. You know, the method is the tree trunk, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, and use it for as much or as little as you like. You can cherry pick from it too. Oh, I talk to students about this all the time. And that's another thing we're working on is a better placement test for students. We have one in place right now that's functioning, but we'll probably continue to make that better. Because so many students come to us, oh, I played drums for 10 years, then I took 20 years off, and now I'm back. I'm not a beginner, what do I do? Well, I don't know, because there are certain skills you'd be quite good at. You're going to remember how to play a handful of things. But maybe your technique's horrible. Maybe your theory's bad, right? So going through level 2 is beneficial to you, even though you can ace all the playing stuff. So it's almost a matter of, okay, you're a level 2 in theory, you're level 5 at the styles, ears, and music section. So you can either just work here and move forward or cherry pick and push your levels so that you're, you know, because no drummer, I don't care who you are, nobody is all at 10s or all at 5s or all at 6s unless they were just to follow that system. Because we have things we're good at, things we're bad at, and things we've maybe spent more time on. Obviously, you're going to be better at those. So it's finding those holes. We're trying to find the best way to kind of give the students the tools to find that right away. Though, I don't ever want to replace the personal touch that we have with student focus or with emailing me and saying, hey, Kyle, dude, like, level 3 is super easy. What do I do now? And, you know, every student that says they're an advanced drummer, I always challenge them with that stuff. I'm like, oh, you are you? Great, that's awesome. How's your Mozambique? Well, I can't play that. Well, how can you be an advanced drummer then? Right?
Yeah. So let's bring it back to Kyle. What does Kyle want for the future of drumming? And yeah, where do you want to take things next?
Okay, so the future of drumming. For myself, I've been really fortunate to really... My goal as a drummer was to be a versatile player who got to work and play with music that I loved with people I really love too. And because for me, that's what it's all about, right? Jared and I have very different sort of approaches to that. He loves playing the drums for playing the drums. I love playing music with people, and that's my thing. So my oxygen's a little low right now with COVID, but that's what I love doing, and I've been so fortunate. I mean, this instrument has taken me all over the world. It brought me here to Drumeo. I mean, come on. I've had an entire awesome life because of these things. It just blows my mind that this pile of metal and wood has brought me all these amazing things. And so I want to keep bringing that to more and more people. Drumeo is such a, it's still so new, and we're just getting started. Like, when I started, we had half the students that we have now. That's 2 years. Mm-hmm. We had 11,500 when I started. We have 25 now. So I know what our goals are. That means my role is going to change, but we're just going to keep doing this and just keep getting better at it and pushing. And I look forward. Every day I come to work, I know I'm going to get my butt kicked. And I love that because, I mean, sure, it's terrifying a little bit every day, and I love that. It's boring to come to work and be able to know you can sit there and not do anything and still get paid. I don't like that. I don't like that. Drumming in itself, here's what I think. We've seen such a huge shift in the past 3 or 4 years. It used to be you saw a path from learning to be a drummer that you might get in a band, that might get signed, that might become really famous. You could see that path. Now, who knows? You can be successful on your own because you don't need the labels, but you're never going to be a millionaire. But that's okay, maybe. Maybe you're okay with that. But the one thing we have seen, and I can guarantee you this, is that people every day, and I'm talking music primarily, but drumming too, are getting more and more interested in playing instruments for fun. They don't care if they play in a band, but they see the mental and physical well-being benefits of playing an instrument. I don't care if it's kazoo, if it's recorder, if it's drums. I love it when it's drums, but I care that people find betterment in their lives by learning something new that's putting a smile on their face. But we're seeing a huge amount of people coming to instruments now for that enrichment and fulfillment, and that's awesome because I think before, there's always been that, but it's way bigger than it's ever been. And it's not because they want to become rock stars or huge stars or professionals. They just want to have fun. We're seeing so many more people doing that. And then COVID hit, and we see so many more doing that because everybody got a moment to stop and go, you know what? Life is short. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I've always wanted to play those darn drums. Screw it. I'm doing it. I'm going on Sweetwater right now. I'm going to have a drum kit in 4 days. There's got to be some place. Oh, Drumeo. Here we go. And nothing makes me happier. I get I don't know, 10 emails a day. People are like, I wished I had done this sooner. And I'm like, doesn't matter. We're all here together now. Let's go.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like, I could sit here talking to you for another 2 hours easy, but I know you've got other stuff to do, places to be, people to be with. It's the weekend. So, yeah, thank you so much for your time. It's been super cool to talk to you and find out a little bit about what's coming down the pipe with Drumeo. And
for sure. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm just so happy to talk drums and share what we get to do with everybody. And, you know, if people are checking this out and never checked Drumeo out, come check us out. Drumeo.com.
Yeah, totally.
Right? You want to email me? Email me. What the heck? krad@drumeo.com. I don't care if you're a member or not. Let's talk drums.
Kyle, thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure. I will catch up with you soon. Hopefully I'll make it out to your neck of the woods after COVID. That would be cool as well. And plans for another one of these?
Oh man, we had plans for this year.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
We had dates. We had dates in the summertime this year, and we held them to the last possible second. We knew we were pretty sure it wasn't going to happen, but Jared would love to do another one. I mean, we'll see what happens when the world comes back. What that looks like. We also didn't get a chance to do our VIP camps also this year because of we didn't do them because of the festival last year, and then this year obviously we can't do them again. But we want to keep offering those extra things for people if they want to take part. So we're looking at what that's going to be when we can. I know we'd love to do another festival, but maybe we do something different. I know what we're looking to do next year is going to be really, really, really awesome. And it's going to be another level still from what we've done this year. And if we can do that, we'll see.
Awesome. Can't wait. Can't wait to see what you guys are going to be pushing out next. It's it's inspiring, and your own, like personally, your own kind of knowledge and passion for the drums is clear for everyone to see. You're just so encouraging and so knowledgeable. So thank you very much for being part of Drumeo and for helping everybody out on the drums. Yeah, I'll hopefully see you soon, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Cool. Thank you, dudes. Catch you soon.
All right. See ya. So I'm just going to go back to checking my email. David's going to get all this and he's going to be like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you talking to nobody? But it's what I do every day. I talk to a camera. So, I mean, maybe this is streaming live. I have no idea. So, you know.